Building your first multifamily affordable development is a rewarding process and one that can be broken down into clear, defined steps, and I'm showing you exactly how to do it. Today we're covering financing, getting political support for your project, how to apply for and get awarded the tax credits and bonds for your affordable housing project, and finally the design and permitting for your project. If you missed part 1 where we covered building your team, getting your site, and rezoning your property, then make sure to go back and watch it in the link below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 3. Your site is zoned, it's ready for development, your council member is on board with the project, and you have pre-development investors or a joint venture partner lined up. Now you're at the point where you need to figure out your financing. Let's start with tax credits and a little background on how they work. Low-income housing tax credits, or LIHTC for short, give a dollar-for-dollar tax credit to affordable housing developers. The developer then sells the credits to investors in exchange for cash, which is then used to help pay for the construction or rehabilitation of affordable housing. In return, the housing must remain affordable to low-income households for at least 30 years. There are two types of low-income housing tax credits, the 9% and the 4%. The 9% credit is more competitive but provides a larger subsidy while typically funding smaller projects, while the 4% tax credit is automatically available with tax-exempt bonds but covers a smaller portion of the project costs, but you can typically use it on larger developments. For this video, we will assume you are working with the 4% tax credit. When utilizing the 4% LIHTC, your funding or your capital stack is made up of 40% tax credits, or called tax credit equity. They will then give you cash equity. Tax credits come from your state housing agency. Tax credits are a massive piece of affordable housing development, and it's how you as the developer are able to offer a brand new building, sometimes 50 to 100% lower rent than a comparable market rate property. We will get into more detail about how to apply for and get awarded the tax credits later on in the video. To qualify for the 4% LIHTC, at least 50% of your project has to be financed with tax-exempt bonds. These bonds are typically lower interest loans made to affordable housing developers and typically funded by either banks or private investors. The final 10% of the capital stack, often the most critical piece of all of this, is filled with local and state funding. This can typically be a tax abatement from your government or a pilot payment in lieu of taxes, federal funding like CDBG or home funds, or other sources of local funding. Securing the gap funding, as we like to call it, ultimately unlocks the other 90% of your capital stack with the tax credits and bonds which are needed to finance your development. Our development checklist breaks down exactly how to find and apply for this funding. Go check it out in the link below. To secure your financing, it's crucial to first get a letter of support from your council member, and ideally from other public officials too, like your state representative, your state senator, and even the mayor's office. The best way to do this is to build a strong relationship with your council member early on in the process, and we dive into this more in part 1 of the video series. From there, they may be able to introduce you to others in government or housing leadership. If not, a well-written cold email can work too. Include in the email your project narrative, the credibility of your team and yourself, and be clear as to why this letter will help you, ideally in a funding application, either for pilots or tax credits or a different grant that you're applying for. And make it easy by offering to draft a letter so all they have to do is tweak it and sign it. This cold email strategy has worked for me many times, but it especially works best when I follow it up with a phone call or even multiple phone calls and even a visit to their office if needed. When you're applying for your financing, either tax credits, bonds, or gap funding, having strong letters of support gives you a real advantage because it shows that you have community and leadership backing behind you. In my experience, these letters have been the make or break between projects getting funded. Once you have a letter of support, the next step is finding local grants or low interest loans to apply for to help finance your project. Start by reaching out to either your local housing authority, your Office of Economic Development, or the mayor's office. They can point you in the right direction to find the available funding resources. Join email lists from public agencies to get all the latest RFPs or requests for proposals and any new funding opportunities. And stay in regular contact with your state housing agency to learn about all the state-level grants and low-interest loans. Two great resources to help you get started are Local Housing Solutions Guide to Federal Resources and the Housing Agency Marketplace, where you can find current RFPs and project opportunities. We've linked both in the description below. The key is to consistently check the websites, reach out to consultants, or reach out directly to each of the different funding agencies to keep in the loop of any new funding opportunities. When filling out your funding applications, make sure to clearly demonstrate the impact of your project. So number of affordable housing units created, community benefit, and strong financing behind your project. This is important. Make it very clear in your application that without the grant or whatever funding that you're applying for, this project would not be feasible. Funders want to see that that's the but for analysis. So but for this funding from this grant that you're applying for, this project would not move forward. And the funders want to support projects that are exciting and high impact and really unique projects. So you have to make sure your project shines. We do this at Holiday Ventures by starting every project with a brainstorming session between our development team, our operations team, and our marketing team, and really just coming up with every single idea we can of like, how can we make this project, this community, different and unique from anything else out there and provide the absolute most impact. Whether that's who we serve or the unique amenities we offer or strong nonprofit or government partnerships or even access to transit. All of those things can make your community unique, and you don't have to do all of them, but you have to really focus in on do one or two of them really, really well. If it's just you or a small team, that's completely fine. The goal is to just think strategically about how to uniquely position your project. This process helps us write stronger concept narratives and pitch decks and ultimately come up with much more compelling grant applications. Your grant application should also show that your team is mission aligned, has the credibility or experience, and has a proven track record. Share specific data about your track record or your results, details about your company and your team, your core values, and why this project is not only financially sound, but deeply meaningful. Here's an example of one of our funding applications. We aim to give clear, thoughtful answers, and if there is a word or character limit, we use every bit of that to help paint the fullest picture we can of why our project is unique and impactful. We include detailed information about our team, our project financing, letters of support, and our concept narrative. We also provide renderings or visuals wherever possible to help the funders get excited about this project and help them visualize what it could look like to help create affordable housing for families and bring that vision to life. When you're applying for funding, you should also be assembling and engaging your design team. This team will help turn your vision into a buildable plan and includes architect, civil engineer, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers or MEPs, structural engineers, landscape architect, and any other required consultants like sustainability, accessibility, or traffic consultants. These professionals play a crucial role in making sure your project is aligned with the low-income housing tax credit design requirements, local codes, and cost-efficient design strategies. Here's how to find the right team for your affordable housing development. 1. Leverage referrals. Start by asking other affordable developers, general contractors, or even LIHTC consultants for recommendations. Your state housing agency is also a great resource for firms that are familiar in working with the Qualified Allocation Plan or QAP. Number 2, target relevant experience. Prioritize firms that have direct experience working with either LIHTC or public funding. Look for firms that understand how to use cost-efficient design, sustainable measures, or even cost-efficient unit layouts. Number 3, issue a clear RFP. Develop a request for proposal that outlines your vision. Include unit mix, affordability levels, sustainability goals, requested timelines, required services, and evaluation criteria. Ask for firms' qualifications, their relevant project experience, their team bios, and their fee proposal. I've included our free LIHTC design team RFP template in the description below. And number 4, evaluate and interview. Review the proposals and look for LIHTC experience, responsiveness, capacity of their team, as well as the budget. And interview the top teams to assess communication style, design approach, and overall fit with your team. Also, make sure to include your property management company and your general contractor in the design process. They will provide valuable pricing and operational feedback early on. Include them on the front end to ensure a successful project. Setting clear design parameters from the start of a project is crucial to making sure you stay on time and on budget. Start by explaining the project's purpose, like who it's for, the desired community impact, and how design should support these goals. This gives your team crucial context. Then define core requirements, unit counts and types, square footages, amenities, sustainability, or accessibility goals, and funding constraints. Everyone should understand the limits and the opportunities upfront. Make sure to keep budget front and center. As an affordable housing project, every dollar counts. We want smart, high ROI choices. Features that boost livability, durability, or energy performance without adding significant cost. Also, way long-term maintenance. Materials on the exterior, like hardy board, are more cost-efficient on the front end, but require paint every 5 to 10 years. So the long-term cost could be much higher as opposed to something like corrugated metal, which is a little bit more upfront, but has almost no long-term maintenance. Aim for durable, cost-efficient, and value-driven design. Finally, document everything in a simple design memo, outlining your goals, your budget, your timeline, and your expectation for collaboration. This sets a shared understanding and helps prevent misalignment going forward. We created a free design parameters memo to help you get started. The link is in the description below. The planning and design process for an affordable housing development can take anywhere from 14 to 23 weeks from initial design to submission for permits. It begins with visioning and program development, where you define who the housing will serve. This is where your architect and civil engineer create early massings and layouts to test how the site fits in terms of zoning, setbacks, and infrastructure constraints. From there, the team moves into schematic design, or SD. They will develop a site plan, floor plans, and a basic elevation or exterior of the building. This is where you'll see where the building is actually starting to take shape and how it will function. In the design development phase, or DD, the team refines the plans with more detail and coordinates between the architect, the civil engineer, the MEP, the structural, and all the design team. Materials, building systems, energy efficiency, and accessibility are finalized here, as well as early cost estimates and value engineering, or basically ways to make your building more cost efficient, start here. Finally, the permit drawing phase produces the full coordinated drawing set that is ready to go for submission to your local jurisdiction. Throughout the entire process, your weekly OAC, or owner, architect, contractor meetings are crucial. These calls ensure alignment on design decisions, cost, and schedule. As the owner, here are important questions to ask during this meeting. Are we on track to meet key milestone and permit deadlines? Are any decisions needed from the ownership team right now? Are there any design elements that are driving up costs unnecessarily? Are there coordination issues between the disciplines that we should address? What assumptions are being made that might affect constructability or long-term maintenance? Are we fully aligned with building codes and accessibility requirements? Have we identified any long lead time items that could delay the start of construction? These meetings help you catch issues early, avoid delays, and ensure that your team is always moving toward a completed set of plans that are coordinated, buildable, and cost efficient. Next, submit your plans for permits. This process can take anywhere from 4 to 8 months, but the timing can vary significantly based on the city, the complexity of your project, and the number of departments involved in your plan review. Your architect typically leads the submission, and your general contractor or a permit expediter may help in the collaboration or communication with each of the reviewing agencies. Expect multiple rounds of reviews and comments, with revisions and resubmittals required before you receive your stamped, approved permits. These back and forths on the plans are normal for bigger multifamily developments and can take weeks or even sometimes months, depending on how backed up the city is or how responsive your design team is to getting back to the comments. Importantly, some cities and states now offer expedited permit review for affordable housing developments, meaning your project can go to the very front of the line for permits, or they will give you a much more expedited or shortened review process. This can cut months off your timeline. Make sure to ask your local building department or permitting agency if your project qualifies and what are the steps that are needed to get that certification. Often this may include providing proof of public funding toward the project, affordability commitments, or meeting specific state-defined criteria. You also need to budget for permit fees, which can be substantial. This can include your building permit fees, your plan review fees, your utility tap fees, your stormwater tap fees, and sometimes your school or transportation impact fees. As a ballpark, a 60 to 100 unit affordable multifamily project could have anywhere from $150,000 to $400,000 in total permit fees. But again, this all depends on your jurisdiction. And some jurisdictions offer reduced or waived permit fees for affordable housing, so make sure to ask for that if that's available early. Finally, remember that both your grading permit and your building permit are essential milestones to your project. The grading permit allows you to start your earthwork, install your erosion control, and start to prep the site. And the building permit allows you to start vertical construction. But these aren't just construction milestones, they are often required by your construction lender to close on your construction financing. So not only can you not build without them, you can't even get the financing without them. To apply for your low-income housing tax credits and bonds, you have to really understand your qualified allocation plan, or QAP. The QAP is issued issued by your state housing agency and governs how the federal tax credits are allocated in the state, and sometimes even includes language about the tax-exempt bonds or other soft funding or grants available. The Qualified Allocation Plan, or QAP, is issued by your state housing finance agency and governs how the federal tax credits, the tax-exempt bonds, and even sometimes grants or soft funds are awarded. It outlines the scoring system, eligibility rules, design standards, and timelines, and the type of projects that the agency is prioritizing. Think of it as the rule book. Your success depends on knowing every page. Here's how to read and use the QAP effectively. Study the QAP backwards and forwards. Look at the scoring section, the eligibility criteria, building requirements and the set-aside categories, application checklists, and appendices. Pay very close attention to how projects are scored, including priority locations, income targeting, services offered, sustainability features, and cost limits. Understand what earns points and what is non-negotiable. Cross-reference the application instructions or program guide that is often issued in tandem with the QAP. This breaks down required forms, documentation, and submission protocol. Look for threshold requirements, like minimum affordability periods, developer experience, and site control. These must be met in order to even apply. Highlight items that require third-party documentation early, like market studies, phase 1 reports, appraisals, and even capital needs assessment. And order them from the agency's approved vendor list, which can typically be found in the QAP or somewhere on their website. Let's talk about building relationships and getting ahead of the curve. Schedule early meetings with the agency's tax credit or multifamily teams, not just to introduce your project, but to also ask clarifying questions about their priorities, their timing, and any scoring nuances. Get feedback on your project concept before submitting. Some agencies offer pre-application meetings or early review sessions. Use these opportunities to ensure alignment with their expectations. Understand your state's timeline. Some operate on competitive annual rounds with hard deadlines, while others use rolling or first-come, first-served models. In competitive states, your application has to be 100% complete and polished day one. Late or incomplete applications are often rejected outright, and learn from what's worked. Study previous winning applications. Many agencies post them online, or you can request a Freedom of Information Act or FOIA request. Analyze how high-scoring applications submitted their site plans, presented their narrative, their development team, and their resident services. Look at how they structured their sources and uses, how they met threshold criteria, and earned points in optional scoring categories. Prepare a flawless application. Every sentence, number, and attachment matters. Many states will disqualify or penalize applications for errors as small as typos, miscalculations in your numbers, or even missing signatures. Create a detailed internal checklist to make sure you're hitting every required document, and make sure they meet formatting, naming, and any submission requirements. And have multiple team members review the application for accuracy and completeness before submitting. Bottom line, if you are serious about becoming an affordable housing developer, learning how to read and respond to a QAP is absolutely essential. No matter the size or scale of your first development, this single step is the absolute most important. Because if your application does not score or qualify, the deal does not happen. Once you've received your tax credit and bond commitment letters from the state agency, then it's time to raise your debt and equity. Start by pulling together a clean project narrative, an updated pro forma, your site plan, your commitment letters, your team bio, and your sources and uses. This is what you'll send to your potential investors or lenders. So make sure it's professional, well-organized, and clearly communicates your vision and the project's feasibility. Reach out to LIHTC equity investors. These are either syndicators who pull together capital from multiple banks or CRA-focused banks. Share your project materials, set up intro calls, and then ask for LOIs or letters of intent. These LOIs outline the equity pricing, the fees, the contributions, and key deal terms. Simultaneously, you will reach out to and connect with lenders like banks, CDFIs, or other public agencies. And this will be for both your loans for construction and for your permanent debt. Request term sheets covering loan size, term, interest rate, fees, reserves, and closing conditions. If you're a first-time developer, be upfront about your experience and lean on a strong project team. This is either a co-developer or a LIHTC consultant who has a strong, proven track record. Their credibility helps de-risk the deal in the eyes of your financing partners. Highlight any relevant past work and how your team is positioned to execute. Once you receive multiple LOIs or term sheets, you want to review them carefully. Look beyond just the equity pricing and the interest rates. Pay attention to fees, reserve requirements, cash flow splits, asset management fee terms, draw schedules, and how each partner lines up with both your timeline and your project needs. You always want to negotiate. Even small improvements in terms can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the project. And don't do this alone. Lean on your tax credit attorney during these negotiations. They have likely reviewed hundreds of LOIs and partnership agreements and know where to find the hidden risks or unfavorable language. A strong tax credit counsel will advocate for your interests, help you structure the deal fairly, and ensure that you retain long-term ownership and control. Start building your investor and lender relationships long before you get your first award. Once you've signed your LOI with your equity and your lender, you'll move on to the next phase, finalizing legal documents and doing your due diligence. The most important legal document is the Limited Partnership Agreement, or LPA. These are typically 100+ page documents, which lays out the full structure of the partnership with your tax credit equity investor for the next 15+ years. The LPA is almost always drafted by your investor's attorney. Don't be intimidated. This is where your tax credit counsel is essential. While the LPA is being negotiated, both your equity investor and your lender will begin their due diligence process. This usually involves a checklist of anywhere from 5 to 7 pages, covering dozens of required items. You'll be asked to provide things like market study and appraisal, zoning confirmation letter, construction budget and plan review, environmental reports like phase 1 and sometimes a phase 2, organizational documents for your development entity, title, insurance, surveys, utility letters, and more. This process can feel overwhelming at first, but the good news is you are given a very clear list of what is expected. Your job is to go line by line, gathering the requested documents and clearly communicating with your partners. Don't be afraid to ask questions like, what format do you need this in? Who should this document come from? When do you need this by? Or could you give me an example of what this could look like? Remember, your investor and lender are committing tens of millions of dollars towards this project, so they're going to dig deep. Their goal is to confirm that your project is feasible, permitted, properly capitalized, and aligned with program requirements. Once all the boxes are checked on your due diligence list and all internal approvals are met, your funding is unlocked and you are ready to close. As you prepare to close and you're simultaneously working through your due diligence list with your equity and your debt partners, you should also be finalizing your bond documents and fully engaging your general contractor. If your project involves tax-exempt bonds with a 4% LIHTC, make sure all bond-related documents, including the loan agreement, the trust indenture, and the bond purchase agreement, are reviewed, negotiated, and approved before closing. Work closely with your bond counsel and your tax credit attorney, and confirm that your TEFRA hearing or your bond public hearing has been completed earlier in the process. At the same time, your general contractor should be fully engaged, not just selected. This means having a signed GMP or guaranteed max price contract. This is based on all the final construction documents, locking in your subcontractor pricing, and reviewing timeline and logistics for a smooth construction start. The GC should also be coordinating with local utility providers, confirming insurance and bonding, and preparing to issue a notice to proceed immediately after closing. That wraps up part 2 of this 3-part series in how to do your first affordable multifamily development. Check out the description below for our free development checklist that covers this entire process in one easy to follow document. In the next video, we'll cover how to get the deal closed, start construction, lease up and stabilize, ensure cash flow, and make a massive impact. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss a thing. If you have any questions or want us to cover anything in more detail, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.